Blodsbedödlar helgar kindi Meiri och minni Mögeheimdal Vilt vad jag var föder väl fyrtälja Fornspjärns fyra tauer främst Hau var alla för i min bil Bara sannur säger nu svala Hjärt fanns dig var nu i min Gap var ginnunga en grås Solter sortna sig från liva Kvärv av himni hejdar stjärnor Geisar ej vi och aldrar Leikrar hit i min kölven Breider mon berg och skoggbönum värdas Mon se strångar se vi omspedlar Skallrygg dra till taskståndande Om Ragnar och grönsiktigar Ser hon upp komma öder och Gör då regiliga gröna Fåglar forsar fingret Så är de fjälllig fiskar Så all ser hon stanna så lufega Gudlig tagdan augemlei
Good evening. Welcome to Drift and Drop. Wow, what a tune. I love that tune so much. It's Orduna, I think the band are called. Scandinavian Vikings, modern day Scandinavian Vikings. Thanks for joining me once again on this Sunday evening. Hello, Margie. Thanks again for showing up. And Dee, it's Debbie, is it? How you doing, Debs? If that's the case. Rosie Lee, hello, welcome. And Mark, hello, Mark. How you doing? Good to have you back. So here we are again. Slow media in a fast world. And if you're new here, I guess I better ask, can you hear me? After the last few weeks of starting a mute. Yeah, so if you're new here, this is a listening room, a drinking room, No hot takes, no outrage loops, just artifacts, ideas, and a glass of something worth sipping. I'm pleased to say the bar is back open and whiskey season is back upon us. This is a Talisker 10 from the Isle of Skye, a Christmas gift from my dad. I got a few. Thanks, Dad. And the Isle of Skye, where this amazing, beautiful aquavita was first made, was MacLeod territory. Dunvegan Castle, the seat of Clan MacLeod, for 800 years, sits on this island. Salt air, peat smoke, and something that tastes like surviving a storm. Highlands and the Hebrides, the Outer Hebrides, you'll know what that means. I've been once when I was a child with my mum. I think I was 13 actually, just on the cusp of being a man. It's an incredible place. Trump's mother was a MacLeod, Mary Ann MacLeod, from the Isle of Lewis. They were basically Vikings who became Scottish lords. MacLeod means son of Olaf. And tonight we're going to be talking about the Viking settlement of Greenland. Talk about power and what's underneath the ice. We'll look at old maps and older myths. A 500-year-old book about how power really works. A film about immortals who absorb the strength of everyone they defeat. And we'll ask what all of this has to do with you. But first, it would be rude not to sample this Viking beverage. So, here we go. And you may think this wrong, but I always add a little splash of water to dilute it slightly, but also to allow the aromas to bloom. Cheers. Wow. Taste the peat. So many different whiskey tastes. It's crazy. That's a good whiskey. So, let's begin. Trump wants to buy Greenland. And I know what you're thinking. We've heard this before. Everyone laughed. He's crazy. He's a real estate guy who thinks he can just buy countries. Now, it's the thing that nobody really wants to admit, is that he's winning. And he's not winning in the way politicians usually win, with compromise and communiques and diplomatic language that means nothing and kisses ass. He's winning by making the entire European establishment look like they don't know the game that they're playing. And later on, I want to show you a map from 1595. A map with a black rock at the center of the world that pulls everything towards it. And you'll see why this story is as old as power itself. But first, let me show you how we got here. Trump floats the idea of buying Greenland. The Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, calls it, and I quote, absurd. Now, if you're a diplomat, you know that's a loaded word. You don't call the American president's ideas absurd unless you're trying to score points with your own base, unless you think he's a joke. And Trump's response, he posts this, a photoshopped Trump Tower rising out of a tiny Greenlandic village. Caption, I promise not to do this to Greenland. Everyone laughed. The media laughed. Europe laughed. But they always miss the joke because it always falls on them. They thought Trump got owned. Denmark put him in his place. He cancelled his state visit, called Frederiksen nasty, and then silence for 5 years. But here's what everyone missed. He didn't forget. He never forgets. Trump is petty and vindictive. He will chase you for years until he's got revenge. He never lets it go. He sent Don Jr. to Greenland just after Trump is back in office.
Like the runway Santa Claus would land at.
And there's the Trumpinator on the captain's cockpit. And Don Jr. is heading to Nuuk, the capital of Greenland. It's coming in hot. Well, no, really, really cold. And as you can see, Greenland is the ice wall. There's no green there, ironically. It's just a big block of ice. Now, he wasn't there officially. The Greenlandic government is very clear on this. It was an unofficial visit, a private citizen, nothing to do with the US government. And then here he is in Greenland, January 7th, 2025, a year ago. And as you can see, the late Charlie Kirk is with him on this unofficial visit. Government, apparently. And then the photos start rolling out. Locals in MAGA hats, smiling faces, thumbs up. Greenland loves Trump, 70,000 likes. And the narrative is set. The people of Greenland want America. They're tired of Denmark. Denmark have done some really terrible things to the native Inuit Greenlanders. They've had sterilization programs. They've kidnapped Inuit families and children and taken them to Denmark, where they've brought them up in this alien environment, put them in the factories and changed their way of living, which Inuit Greenlanders were vehemently opposed. And they only recently, like maybe 10 years ago, achieved some kind of autonomy from Danish rule. So all is not good in the kingdom of Denmark. Trump Jr. is there on a diplomatic mission. Smiles, MAGA hats, and American flags. And then he takes us back to America with the Trumpinator.
Guys, full thrust, take off, leaving Greenland.
We are aboard Trump Force One on a full thrust takeoff.
Right to it.
Ground speed's picking up. Definitely a shorter
Runway in Greenland. The takeoff video had 122,000 likes. It was the biggest engagement of the whole trip. Trump Jr. was updating people as he was going. Mission accomplished. Story told. Greenland wants Trump. And then the Danish media reports that the Trump team paid homeless people, put them in a hotel, fed them dinner, and had them pose in MAGA gear for the cameras. Now, this tells the story a little bit that some of these people were homeless people. Now, I don't know if this was just
If you
another...
could say anything to Donald Trump, what would you tell him?
God bless you. You are so strong. We love you so much.
Hello, Trump.
Why Greenland?
Do you want to be part of America?
You do.
You do.
You do.
Also, what do you
I
think?
have a
Don?
feeling this guy does too.
Do you want Donald Trump to buy Greenland?
Trump of Greenland. More protector. More life. More.
Right, so he says, we'll see you soon, Trump captioned the video. But the Danish media said Trump's team bribed homeless people with a hotel dinner as they posed for his supporters for a video. Trump Jr. visited Greenland this week. A video went viral on the internet of locals wearing MAGA caps during his visit, professing support for the US president-elect and asking to make the island part of the United States. Someone was quoted saying that some poor and socially disadvantaged people attended the dinner at the restaurant doesn't mean they were bribed. So Greenland only has a population of around 50,000 people, maybe even less than that. So how many homeless do they have there? Now, here's where it gets interesting. A Greenlandic MP goes public. You know, it was all staged, and there were people there with middle fingers saying, Yankee, go home. And then they were saying 85% of Greenlanders oppose any form of US control. Now, does it matter? Does the exposure matter? The photos went viral. The correction got a fraction of the engagement, but the story was already told. The frame was already set. That's the key, is to control the frame before your opponents do. Because Trump understands something that the European technocrats don't. You don't win by being right. You win by setting the frame. This applies to us too, internally, how you set your own frame. Because by the time they're done fact-checking you, the story has already been established and you've already moved on. And this is what he was fighting against in his first term, is that the lying media constantly setting the frame, constantly controlling the narrative. Because Trump is on the defensive trying to fight back against what we now know were lies with the Russia hoax. It's been proven that it was just a cock and bull story, as we knew at the time. But he wasn't as savvy now, with all of that experience, in controlling the narrative before his opponents do. And that's layer one, the surface. That's the surface layer that we get, the final end user. But we can go a little bit under the surface. So what's under Greenland? So why does he actually want it? Everyone says it's rare earth minerals, and sure, they're extremely important on the geopolitical chessboard. So everyone's fighting for the resources, right? And if we don't get them, Russia will, China will. They ain't sharing it with us. So let's be a little bit more specific. Greenland has 1.5 million tons of rare earth elements. The minerals that go into every phone, every missile, every electric car. And China controls 60% of global production, 90% of processing. So Greenland is the counter move by America, the escape hatch, the leverage from losing its position as the current hegemon. Because China and Russia, obviously, the BRICS countries are challenging America's dominance. But not only that, Greenland is a point where the northern sea routes can be controlled or used. It's becoming easier and easier to send ships through the Arctic. New shipping lanes are being opened, and Asia to Europe is 10 to 15 days faster than going through the Suez Canal. So whoever controls the Arctic controls 21st century trade and commerce. The Americans have got an airbase in Greenland called Thule. Thule is one of the most esoteric names that exist in northwestern European mythology. They knew what they were doing when they named it Thule. And that's America's most northern military installation. Missile detection, space surveillance, NORAD early warning system that took a day off on 9/11. That's already there. They just want more. They want more control. And that's what I kind of want you to see. What Trump is doing isn't new. It's what empires do. In 1946, President Truman offered Denmark $100 million for Greenland. They said no. A 99-year lease signed in 1951. I think the British Virgin Islands were also owned by Denmark, and America bought them off Denmark for $25 million. So this is not without precedent. Many, many precedents of global powers acquiring more land through purchase rather than. In 1947, Secretary of State Seward, the guy who bought Alaska from Russia, right? So Alaska used to be Russian territory, and America bought it off them. But he bought Alaska. He tried to buy Greenland in 1947, and Congress refused. The Vikings, Trump's lineage on his mother's side, and his father was German, full German. They used to speak German until he was 9 around the dinner table. Trump. So the Vikings discovered America via Greenland around 985 AD. Eric the Red and his son Leif Erikson reached North America 500 years before Columbus. They called it Vinland. It's always been a door, a stepping stone, a threshold. But we'll come back to that. And the Greenlandic Prime Minister said it clearly. We can negotiate on politics, security, investments, but we cannot negotiate on sovereignty. Beautiful words. But when great powers circle, sovereignty becomes a negotiating position. Now, watch what happens next.
There's threats, pressure, and condescending remarks, even from our closest allies for a generation, about wanting to take over another country and another people as if it was something you could buy and own that has no place anywhere. We shoulder our responsibility in the world, and it is not us who will seek out conflict. But let there be no doubt, no matter what happens, we will stand firm on what is right and what is wrong.
The Prime Minister of Denmark, January the 4th this year, she says, I have to say this very directly to the United States. It makes absolutely no sense to talk about the need for the United States to take over Greenland. The United States has no right to annex any of the 3 countries in the Commonwealth. Well, they have the right of conquest. It's an iron law of nature. The United States has no right to annex any of the 3 countries in the Commonwealth. Denmark, after all, claimed Greenland by sailing a boat there. They annexed it from the Inuit, right? The United States has no right to annex any of the 3 countries in the Commonwealth. The Kingdom of Denmark, and thus Greenland, is part of NATO and is therefore covered by the alliance's security guarantee. We already have defense agreements between the Kingdom and the United States today, which gives the United States wide access to Greenland, and we, on the other part of the Kingdom, have invested significantly in security in the Arctic. I would therefore strongly urge the United States to stop the threats against a historically close ally and against another country and another people who have said very clearly that they are not for sale. So, powerful words from the Danish MP, but it's she does negotiating too. Now, without America, there is no NATO. NATO is America. The British do a lot of the logistics for NATO, but without American military power, there is nothing. One of the conditions of a country joining NATO is that they stop funding their own military and give between 2 and 5% of their GDP to the American military to pay for the muscle. But what that means is that as a consequence, you no longer fund your own military. You've got no defense. If America pulled out of NATO, what he would leave behind is a group of faded European powers with no military to defend themselves. It would take them years in order to build it back up. So this is a very precarious position for Europe. Trump knows this, of course, and therefore has enormous leverage in any negotiation. Not only can he withdraw security, he can also enforce it. He holds all the cards. Now, what happens next is 1 year later, January 2026, the pressure has been building, and Trump is saying that the military option is not ruled out. And his people are talking about economic coercion, tariff threats against 8 European nations, like big tariff threats. He came out the other day and said to Macron, if he doesn't get on board, I'm going to tax his cheese and his champagne. He's going to put a 200% tariff on French cheese and champagne and soon change his position. This is one of the reasons why Trump, at the very beginning of his second term, spent so long in the early phase rolling out all of this tariff program. And people will call him crazy, but he was just setting up the leverage. So that now, when he threatens tariffs, people know what it means. He's crazy enough to do it, right? So when he says he'll put 200% tariff on wine and cheese, they take that threat seriously, right? No Frenchman is going to be able to withstand the outrage of his countrymen. The Danish Prime Minister said, stop the threats. Listen to the language. Strongly urge. Historically close ally. That's not the language of power. That's the language of someone who's just realized they're not holding any cards. In 2019, she called him absurd. And he responded with the Golden Tower in Greenland. Now she's asking him, please stop. Please stop. And that's what 6 years of underestimating a master negotiator gets you. These people are just idiot politicians. They've never had a job in their lives. They've just been selected, over-promoted, put into these enormous positions of power, and they get run rings around by people who know the game. And what was Trump's response to this rather weak response from the Danish Prime Minister? Of course, this is the type of response.
Right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? Right now.
So, sounds pretty reasonable if you're American, right? You don't want Russia or China to take Greenland, which is, a part of the North American landmass. And you want to protect and control your own interests. The Monroe Doctrine, which Trump has reestablished. The Monroe Doctrine was created by an American president called Monroe, in which it said America will protect its interests in the North or Western Hemisphere. And that if any of its rivals encroached upon the Western Hemisphere, which encompasses all the way up to Greenland, right down to Argentina, then America will do what's necessary in order to protect its interests. Nothing the British or haven't done or continue to do, and nothing that the Russians aren't doing in Ukraine. They're protecting their interests. Now, Trump is framing it as a matter of national security, because if it is a matter of national security, then he doesn't need anyone's permission. It's not an economic measure. He's saying it's actually to protect America from threats outside, from China or Russia or whoever, right? He's probably got some legitimacy with that argument. If it's true that the Russians and the Chinese are controlling trade in the Arctic or beginning to get a stranglehold on that trade, of course, they're going to push back. This is not political ideology. This is not left-wing or right-wing. This is just power. It doesn't matter who's elected into office. The defense of your realm, of your interests, is above and beyond, right? Because it's not the left wing you need to worry about. It's not the right wing you need to worry about. It's the beak in the middle. Now, he's saying, you need to do it my way, take my money, or you do it the hard way. Now, he's just demonstrated perfectly in Venezuela what the hard way is, right? He'll send in a squad, 20 men, and he'll take it. Probably with 0 casualties. So that was another demonstration of Trump establishing leverage in the minds and the psyche of his political, economic, ethnic rivals. They know what he's prepared to do in order to protect national security, right? So imagine you're a European diplomat. You spent your career in rooms where everyone speaks in code and does a little dance, skirts around the issue, and then the bull in the china shop comes in and wrecks 30 years of your work. These diplomats where frank and productive discussions means you hate each other, but nothing is ever said directly. And then this guy, he says it on camera, whether they like it or not. That's not diplomatic language. That's the language of power, right? And you have to respect it, whether you'd agree with him or not. But for me, I respect it. I respect his honesty. Right? And it's a breath of fresh air rather than these utter weasel politicians who, in this post-war liberal ideology, right, where they pretend that power no longer exists, empires no longer exist. They do it behind cloaked veils and through lies and deceit. You know, this kind of straight talk is refreshing, and I find it immensely fascinating and interesting. Because there's no response to what are you going to do about it? Because what are they going to do about it? There's no diplomatic framework for someone who just tells you what he's going to do. So that means that Denmark, he's removed the diplomatic tool, right? Because he's speaking so straight to them, they have to step out of the persona, of the mask, and either reveal their weakness, which he has done, or they can demonstrate their strength, like Putin is doing, right? This is why Trump respects Putin. He respects him as an equal on the world stage. This is why Trump and Putin would make natural allies. And then we had the official White House statement. This is the White House. The United States needs Greenland for the purpose of national security. If we don't, Russia or China will, and that's not going to happen. The entire European foreign policy establishment is having a collective aneurysm. You just can't say that. There are processes, there are frameworks, there are procedures. There's a way we do things, Donald. And Trump just tells them to fuck you. Now, this has been building up and building up. The Europeans are having fits about this, threatening to send German troops to the North Pole. Oh, when have we heard German troops going to the North Pole before? Rolling and rolling. And the pressure is building. They're desperate for Trump to release the pressure. Please, please, Trump, take your boot off my throat. So now we've got something called the working group, right? Which is Trump's way of releasing some of the pressure.
subject of Greenland, Jeff Landry, the president's special envoy for Greenland, wasn't in the White House meeting yesterday. Can you say why that was and what exactly the role he is playing in these conversations about acquiring Greenland?
Well, the Vice President and the Secretary of State were present for that meeting. It was a productive meeting. The two sides agreed to establish a working group of individuals who will continue to have technical talks on the acquisition of Greenland. Those talks will take place, I'm told, every 2 to 3 weeks. The president has made his priority quite clear. He wants the United States to acquire Greenland. He thinks it's in our best national security to do that.
I'm going to buy it. So now they're at the table. Now they're negotiating, because previously sovereignty wasn't up for negotiation, right? But here they are at the table. Trump goes to Davos, and I don't know if anyone's seen the Davos speech. I watched clips of it, but it was just devastating. You know, he's gone to their turf and he's just ripped them a new asshole. And he said, globalism is over. The idea of outsourcing all of our production, our industry, sending it east, wealth, that era's over. That period is over. We are not doing that any longer. We're protecting our own interests under nationalism. I don't mean a crazy national. I mean just protecting our interests and our productivity and our industry. And he went there and told them to their faces. And one of the funniest lines was, and this is a classic boomer shout, he said, if it wasn't for us, you'd all be speaking German. And I'm not sure if he knew this, but he was in Switzerland where they all speak German. Right? Just classic Trump going in with a wrecking ball, and all of these smug, snob, European elites who sneer at us, the common people, and believe we should be under some technocratic dictatorship. And in comes Trump, this uncouth barbarian, this Viking, and says, it's all over, guys. The party's over. I thought it was awesome. I laughed my head off. From the sheer balls of it, he knows who's the boss. And he's not afraid to tell them. So Trump is threatening huge tariffs against Europe if they didn't comply. They were calling his bluff. And then it got to Davos and they folded because they've gone to the table. Right? And he said, okay, I'm removing the tariffs. The leverage, yeah, I've got what I want. I'll remove the leverage. And he's negotiated. Trump is getting total access to Greenland with no time limit, which is basically sovereignty. Total access without any limits, without any time. So without it being a humiliation for Denmark and the EU of officially handing over sovereignty to America, Greenland will probably now be a protectorate of America. So it controls the territory. They have some level of autonomy, and Denmark will still have some kind of peace in the game. Everyone's happy. That from 2019, absurd from the Danish Prime Minister, to 2026, technical talks on acquisition. So they're actually in financial talks, technical talks on acquisition. That's the arc, that's the pattern, and that's how it works. And Trump has played this card so many times. I can't believe these people cannot see it coming. Because every time he does it, I go, are they going to fall for it again? Can't they see the setup? Can't they see this coming from a mile off? It's mad. It's nuts. And he's a master of it, an absolute master of it. This is what his true art is. It's not real estate. It's not politics. It's negotiating and understanding psychology, how humans respond, how humans work. And he is able to play long games, 5 years in this case. But if you think about it, if he was pitching his Greenland plan in 2019, right, then that's been on the table. That's been part of the global plan for much longer than 2019. So this could have been 2017, 2016. Remember, he came down the escalator in 2015. So this could have been part of a long-range plan. And why not? Because 2019 demonstrates that it was clearly part of his thinking back then. For it to reach maturity before the negotiation became ripe enough for him to pull it from the tree without any resistance at all. Now, Greenland is an incredible place. A place where you get some of the best northern lights on Earth. And you know what causes them? Solar wind. Invisible particles that come from the sun, colliding with the Earth's magnetic field. And you can't see the collision. You can only see the light. And that's what this story is about. The light is what everyone sees. The tweets, the posts, the outrage. The collision is underneath the ice, underneath the psyche, the resources, roots, power. The line I keep coming back to is, you don't blame gravity when someone falls off a cliff. And it's gravity that makes the fall happen, right? Power is the same. It's not moral. It's not immoral. It just is. It's an iron law of nature, like gravity. Trump didn't invent the game. He just stopped pretending that it was something else. Because of this liberal social order that's been constructed since the Second World War and imposed upon Western civilization to slowly rot its way from the inside. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. We want Greenland. I'll use tariffs. You can say yes and we'll be appreciative, or you can say no and we'll remember. I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. It's not new behavior, it's old behavior said out loud. And the Europeans are outraged because he's saying the quiet part out aloud, and it embarrasses them. But the quiet part was always there. Now, I'm not here to tell you this is good or bad. I'm here to give you my take on how it works from an anthropological perspective, so that we can take the insights to be able to read the patterns more clearly, to be able to use them in your own life to get the things that you want, to understand how the game works, because it operates on every level. It doesn't operate just at the highest echelons of global power. It operates when you go and watch football. You know, you may hear people saying empire's bad and this is all bad and the left, and they go and watch the football. What do they want? They want their team to beat the other team. They don't just want them to win, they want them to dominate. They want them to crush them and humiliate them. They want to win again. And they want to win again until they win the league. The league is one team's domination over the other teams and over the other fans. And the winning team get the chance to belittle and humiliate the fans that lost. And they don't just want to win one league. They want to win every league. They want to win every year. They want total dominance in the football world. Liverpool wasn't just a club that won a few league titles. It was a dynasty. It was a manager after manager whose only objective was to dominate the league. And that's what the fans want. And that's what makes us happy. It operates at every single level. It's just a part of the human experience. It just is. Like falling off a cliff. It's gravity what kills you. And what just happened in Davos? That was a masterclass. Because let's spend a moment decoding Davos. Trump met the NATO secretary, Mark Rutte. He was the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. Total stooge. And his reward is to be the head of NATO. He's got zero military experience. Probably never had a fight in his life. And they announced a framework for a future deal on Greenland. Immediately, Trump dropped the tariff threats that were scheduled for February the 1st. So basically, they had a week. They had a week to succumb to Trump's demands, or the tariffs were going in place. Now, what's the pattern? Stage one. This is how Trump does it. In Art of the Deal, the book that he wrote, and tells you how he does it, right? He has something called an extreme opening. And this is what fires Trump derangement syndrome, right? When you see people with Trump derangement syndrome, is that they have been the victim of his extreme opening, in which his first offer is so extreme, it's so far out into the distance, it's so unreasonable that the other side in the negotiation has an emotional reaction, takes it personal, drives them crazy. And in Trump's case, he said, we want to buy Greenland, full ownership, maybe military force. So there's nothing much more extreme than we'll go in by force, right? Now, if you're on the other side of that and you know that you don't have the military force to match it, then you're going to have an emotional response. And this is what a lot of the TDS that Trump's opponents suffer from, where they have a total psychological breakdown, are unable to see the truth or able to read between the lines and just have these emotional reactions to Trump's opening moves, his opening gambit. Everyone reacts. Outrage, condemnation. He's insane. While everyone's losing their minds about military force, the actual ask is moving underneath the ice. Access, minerals, positioning, national security. So the extreme opening is to try and grab as much territory with that first opening, and it could be psychological territory, physical territory, economic territory, whatever. First move is to grab as much as you can, as much as possible, put a claim on it. And then the next move is to create leverage. Trump's about to put tariffs on us all. He's not threatening Greenland, right? He's threatening Germany, France, the Netherlands, UK. All those people, all those European despots who spent 4 years trying to bring him down when he was in his first office, he hasn't forgotten about that. So he creates leverage. And sometimes he creates leverage years before, because he knows he can play it when the time is right. Stage 3, let them panic. He says nothing. He goes quiet. Look at the Greenland Post, 5 years of silence. He lets the pressure build until it becomes unbearable. Psychological pressure. And every day, the tariff deadline gets closer. The markets continue to react. The phone calls get more desperate. Mark Rutte did the same thing. Donald Trump read out these personal texts from European leaders in Davos. Total humiliation for these people. And he's saying that he doesn't have any respect for them. He doesn't believe they have any power, because he wouldn't do that to Putin, for sure. And then stage 4, the real position emerges. So the first offer is not what he wants. What he actually wants is all the way back here. But he makes the first offer so extreme that it makes the other side feel like they've won back the territory, back to where his actual position is. His actual position was security access, mineral rights, a Golden Dome missile defense integration, total access to parts of Greenland for an unlimited period. That was always the ask. The buy Greenland stuff was the opening bid. Now, that may still happen, because he may see that the other side's negotiating position is so weak that he just go for it. But that probably isn't his real objective. Looks like an act of mercy, looks generous. Because when you're negotiating, both sides want to come out of it feeling good. If one side feels like they've been scammed, right, they are going to resent that deal. And that deal will come back. Now, stage 5, the concession. Drops the tariffs, says framework reached. Everyone exhales. And Europe thinks it's won because he's not literally buying the island or sending in the military. And stage 6 is the victory framing. We got everything we wanted. And he's probably right. This is textbook art of the deal. Think big, ask for the whole island, settle for access, use leverage, create pressure that you can release. Know your market. Europe needs US security more than US needs Europe. Drop the tariffs the moment you have the framework. Later on, if we get to it, I'll read something from Machiavelli from 500 years ago, which explains exactly why this works. But first, let's go down the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole. Greenland attracts conspiracy theories the way it attracts empires. You've probably heard of some. Hollow Earth, Greenland and Antarctica as the entry points into an inner world. Admiral Byrd's Diary, which is Antarctica. If you've seen any of the Godzilla King Kong films recently, they go into that whole myth of Hollow Earth. Thule Air Base. This is also in Greenland. And if you know anything about European mythology, you know the Thule Society, where there's a really important secret society in the 1930s. What's really underneath? Deep underground military bases? Continuation of government bunkers? Something up there for sure. Then a missing nuke. In 1968, a B-52 was carrying 4 nuclear bombs. It crashed near Thule. One allegedly was never found. Then you have Project Iceworm. This one's real. In the 1960s, the US Army built a city under the ice with a nuclear reactor. Officially, it was abandoned, and the ice is melting now, but, you know, what's down there? Elite bunkers, ancient civilizations, alien technology in Greenland, and that's why Trump wanted it. They wanted to go and get the alien mothercraft, like a new Roswell incident. But I'm not here to litigate any of that, right? Because the conspiracy I found most interesting is much older, 500 years older. And it's not a theory, it's a map. This is the Mercator Arctic map from 1595. And it's one of the most mysterious maps in cartographic history. The first separately printed map dedicated to the Arctic. Now, a top-down view of the pole, there are 4 landmasses with rivers. These are the rivers, and these are the 4 landmasses. This, I believe, is Greenland. So this is Greenland. It's not that big, by the way. It's just the way the maps are made. Now, when you put the Mercator map over the top, right, they say this is Greenland. Now, this is a top-down view of the 4 landmasses that they said was at the North Pole. And there was an expedition that went there to map it. Contemporary misconceptions of the North Pole largely stemmed from the writings of a Franciscan friar from Oxford who travelled the North Atlantic region in the 1360s. His now-lost travelogue, In Vento Fortunata, contained a description of the North Pole as a magnetic island, Rupus Nigra, a 33-mile-wide black rock, surrounded by a giant whirlpool and 4 continents. Between these Arctic land masses, ocean waters rushed northwards and descended into the earth at the pole. Now, this is the Black Rock. Black Rock Finance isn't named that by coincidence. The Orthodox Jews pray with a black rock on their forehead. The Muslims move around a black rock in Saudi Arabia and Mecca. The cross is a cube that has been unfolded. And this was what was being written about 500 years ago. And funnily enough, 33 miles wide. That's no coincidence. And it was said that this is the source of the Earth's magnetism. And the reason compasses point north, because there is a gigantic black cube magnet at the center. And he based this on a lost book, the Inventio Fortuna. Now, this is Mercator's map, was based upon this book, the lost book, by this Franciscan friar in the 1360s. The book is gone and only references survive. Nobody knows if the friar was lying, mad, or telling the truth. But regardless, he has had a significant influence over culture because this is, an ancient map. But Mercator believed him. He said pygmies lived there, 4 feet tall, and that the ocean descended into the bowels of the earth at the pole. The Vril Society, a lot of the ideas come from the North Pole. And this is all well protected. And this is what the edge of the known world looked like. Magnetic rocks, whirlpools, pygmies, the abyss. And Greenland was regarded as the threshold into the black rock. And here you can see it's not at the center, right? So this is Greenland. Skelling was a medieval Norse term for the native peoples of Greenland in the Arctic. The word is believed to derive from a word for skin, perhaps inspired by the native people's characteristic and animal skin clothing. It was suggested that scaling was a North translation of pygmies, a term known to educated Northmen. That's what the Normans means, is the Northmen, the Vikings from the north. And in particular, Plinty the Elder's Natural History. Besides conveying small stature, the expression connoted inferiority such as feebleness and demonstrable otherness. And what's this one? Alba and St. Thomas. The Zeno account of Greenland describes a remarkable city called Albion, White Mountain, where there was a cloister and a church dedicated to St. Thomas at the base of a volcano. By means of pipes, hot water from a spring was conducted into all chambers of the building, thus yielding the most delightful fruits and flowers. Referred to in 1548 by Hieronymus Gaumont as a lofty mountain on the summit of which a sea mark was set by 2 pirates, Pinnegit and Pothorst, to warn seamen against Greenland. Greenland's got some deep history, man. Frobisher was the first Englishman to set off in search of the Northwest Passage. With the backing of the Muscovy Company, Frobisher ventured north 3 times between 1576 and 1578. He discovered Frobisher Strait, now Bay, in Baffin Island in 1576, was believed to be the entrance of the Northwest Passage. Interesting stuff. Anyway, I will put a link to this map and you can go and have a search for it yourself. The map is full of confident mistakes, but the thing about maps is they show you what power believed, right? They believed this to be. What we do have is a record. We have an actual physical record, which is the map. And it survived for 500 years. Now, the Strait of Annan, a mythical passage between Asia and North America. For 200 years, European powers searched for this strait, a shortcut to Asian markets, and whoever would control it would control global trade. And the true strait wasn't discovered until 1728, and we now call it the Bering Strait. But on this map, it's already drawn, imagined into existence before it was found. Yeah, but it's here. It's already in the map. So, this talk about Russia and China are opening up the Arctic, and they found quicker routes to Europe and the rest of the world without having to go through Suez. Well, maybe there's more going on up north. If you look at the structure of this map, everything flows inwards. The rivers, the currents, the mystery. The black rock at the center doesn't chase, it attracts. Everything moves toward it whether it wants to or not. Not aliens, not hollow earth, gravity. The ultimate law of attraction. And Greenland has always been the door, the threshold. The last piece of land before whatever's underneath. The question isn't whether black rock is real. And it's ironic that Trump has recently gone after black rock, saying that houses are for people, not for institutional corporations, meaning BlackRock. And they were attracting all of the wealth in the world to them using the magnetic power of compound interest, which is the ultimate form of gravity. The question is, who's pulling you? Are you pulling what you want towards you? Or are you letting others pull you into their orbit? And then ultimately collapsing under the weight of their gravity. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. Let me read you what he wrote, because all politicians, all people who feel like they're in the power game, all read Machiavelli. And it's a very, very cynical book. There's no spiritual essence to it. It's the ultimate in human cynicism. But he explains how power works, and politicians read it as essential text. Because we've been talking about power as physics, gravity that pulls you whether you like it or not, a black rock at the center of an old map. That idea isn't new. It's 500 years old or more. Nicola Machiavelli, Florence, 1513. A diplomat who watched power up close. He served the Florentine Republic, watched it fall, was imprisoned, tortured, and in exile, wrote the book that everyone quotes and almost no one ever reads properly. The Prince. It's only a thin book. And it's not a book about how things should be. It's about how things are, whether you like it or not. And no matter what your ideology is, it's a force more powerful than that. And this is from chapter 17 on whether it's better to be loved or feared. Upon this question arises whether it is better to be loved than feared, or feared than loved. One should wish to be both. But because it's difficult to unite them in one person, it's much safer to be feared than loved, when one of those two must be lacking. Because this is to be asserted in general of men, that they are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous. As long as you succeed, they are yours entirely. When the need is far distant, but when it approaches, they turn against you. And men have less scruple in offending one who is beloved than one who is feared. For love is preserved by the link of obligation which, owing to the baseness of men, is broken at every opportunity for their advantage. But fear preserves you by a dread of punishment which never fails. 500 years, still true. Cynical, very. Lacking in spiritual depth, yes. But still anthropologically true. And he wasn't celebrating this. He was just naming it. He was just observing it. Power is physics. Not moral, not immoral, just how it works. You can be angry at gravity. You can wish it were different. The question isn't whether power exists. The question is whether you understand how it moves and whether it moves against you. And if it does, what can you do about it? There's a film that captures this perfectly. A story about a man who can't die unless someone takes his head. And when he defeats another, he absorbs everything they ever were.
There is one called Connor among them.
Aye.
Remember our agreement, Murdoch. The boy is mine.
It's begun! Death to the MacLeod!
So you got some crazy Scottish Highlanders of these fighters who are fighting it out over the centuries. And what you have is this guy.
4.5 centuries. I cannot die.
Well, everybody's got their problems.
Take it. I am Conor MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod. I was born in 1518 in the village of Glenfinnan on the shores of Loch Shiel. And I am immortal.
Oh! Oh!
The best chat-up line ever. I am immortal. Stab me. She stabs him. The next thing, he's got it in bed. But he is Conor MacLeod, right? Trump's clan. One of the MacLeods. He is the Highlander, right? This is Sean Connery in the Highlander. So Sean Connery was skint at the time.
I don't like boats, I don't like water.
And took this
I'm a man, not a fish.
film, low budget, bit of a cult classic.
Endlessly.
You look like a woman, you stupid haggis.
Haggis? What is haggis?
Sheep's stomach stuffed with meat and barley.
And what do you do with it?
You eat it. Achoo! Be still, for God's sake. You'll tip us over.
So?
I cannot swim, you Spanish peacock.
I'm not Spanish, I'm Egyptian.
You said you were from Spain. You're a liar.
You have no knowledge whatsoever of your potential. Now! Get out!
No! Help! Help! Help!
You can't drown, you fool! You're immortal!
It's about how immortals who have been fighting for centuries, and when one defeats the other, he absorbs the strength. It's called the quickening. And the main character is called Conor MacLeod, one of the Clan MacLeod. I am Conor MacLeod. I was born in 1518. We've had Machiavelli, we've had the Mercator map, and now we've had the Highlander, which is purely coincidental. In the village of Glenfinnan, maybe this is where this whiskey was made, on the shores of Loch Shiel, and I am immortal. And Conor MacLeod, Clan MacLeod, that's Trump's clan, right? That was his mother, Mary Ann MacLeod, same clan, same bloodline, the Isle of Lewis, standing stones. It's one of the oldest standing stones in Europe is in the Isle of Lewis. It's older than Stonehenge. Ancient standing stones, Viking blood on the edge of Scotland. MacLeod means son of Olaf, Olaf the Black. Olaf the Black was a Viking who ruled Britain from the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man was his seat of power, Olaf the Black. And Trump's mother is a direct descendant. Therefore, Trump is a direct descendant of a Viking king, which is pretty amazing. And this is what the Highlander taps into, is this immortal power that passes through the bloodline. They're built on one idea. So in this final scene, he's faced with his nemesis, who he has been fighting throughout the centuries. And there will be only one, is the idea behind it.
There can be only one.
That's Trump in Davos. So the Highlander films are built on one idea: immortals walk amongst us. And when one defeats another, he doesn't just win, he absorbs their power. Everything the defeated one ever was flows into the victor. Think about Trump, how he frames this acquisition, or Donald MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod. How does he frame the acquisition? He doesn't want to partner with Greenland. He doesn't want to collaborate with Denmark. He wants to absorb minerals, military access, strategic power, absorbed into the empire, not shaken, not shared, but taken. And the mythology around him, because he is a mythic figure now, and he will be throughout the age, in the same way we look back at Napoleon or Caesar, people will look at Trump in those terms, because he is a mythic figure. The mythology around him works in a way. Every opponent he defeats, and he's defeated many, everyone who comes up against him has all been crushed. From that time on the panel, when he first was on with all of those Republican rhinos, he squashed them all, one by one. Their energy feeds into his. The more they fight, the stronger he becomes. The stronger his myth becomes. Look what they've tried to do to him. Crush him, destroy his business, destroy his life, arrest him, humiliate, assassinate him, and still he became president, and he's more powerful than ever. There will be only one. There can be only one. That's the philosophy under everything that we've talked about tonight. The black rock at the center of Mercator's map, Machiavelli's prince who chooses fear over love, the immortal who absorbs the power everyone he defeats. Power doesn't negotiate, it doesn't share, it consolidates, it pulls everything towards itself until there's nothing left to absorb. But here's what most people miss about the Highlander. Connor doesn't chase the other immortals. They come to him. They challenge him. And when they do, he's ready. Are you ready? He wins because he's prepared, because he's trained for centuries, because when the moment comes, he doesn't hesitate. That's the difference between chasing power and attracting it. Trump creates conditions, applies pressure, and waits for the world to move towards him. The quickening isn't something you take, it's something that happens when you're the one still standing, the last man standing. And the castle in the film is Ilian Donan, near the Isle of Skye, where Clan MacLeod ruled for 800 years. The bloodline, the whiskey, the land, the power. It rhymes. So the question becomes, and this is the question I want to leave you with, what are you ready for? When your moment comes, will you still be standing?
The floating shipless oceans, I did all my best to smile till your singing eyes and your fingers drew me laughing to your eyes, and you sang, said to me, here I am, waiting to hold you. Did I dream you dreamed about me? Were you here when I was forced out? Now my foolish boat is leaning, broken of long. For you sang, touch me not, come back tomorrow. Oh my heart shines from the sun's puzzle as a newborn child. I'm as riddle as the tide. Should I stand with the breakers, or should I lie with death my bride? Hear me sing, swim to me, let me unfold you. Here I am, waiting to hold.
That sank the Titanic came from Greenland. The land we've been talking about tonight. The place that empires are circling around. That ship thought it was unsinkable. It hit what it couldn't see. 90% of an iceberg is below the waterline. The mass, the power, the danger. Most of us are the same. We navigate what's visible, but the real weight is below the surface. I asked, when your moment comes, and it will come, will you be the one still standing? Here's what that actually requires. You don't get what you chase. You get what you attract. Trump doesn't beg for Greenland. He creates conditions where Greenland moves towards him. Conor McLeod doesn't hunt other immortals. He trains, he prepares, and then when they come to him, he's ready. The black rock at the center of Mercator's map doesn't chase, it attracts. Everything flows towards it. That's not politics, that's not fiction, that's not cartography, that's physics. So here's the question for you. What's beneath your waterline? What powers do you have that you're pretending you don't? What leverage do you have that you're not using? What would happen if you just named it? Because that's what I want to do, is I want to help people see what's underneath. The patterns that are running, the leverage they don't know they have, the position they're negotiating from without realizing it. Never enter a negotiation without leverage. And we're negotiating all the time. Most people are completely oblivious to it. So, Greenland, Vikings, whiskey power. A 500-year-old map with a black rock at the center, pulling everything towards itself. A film about immortals who absorb the energy of everyone they defeat. An iceberg that 90% is hidden beneath the surface. And I'll leave you with, you don't blame gravity when someone falls off a cliff. Power is the same. It pulls, it doesn't apologize. You can understand it, work with it, use it, and protect yourself from being at the end of it. But you can't pretend it doesn't exist. And underneath it all, The question that matters more than anything is what is pulling you? And what are you pulling yourself towards? I'm going to finish on a wee dram of Highlander whiskey, and then I'm going to go and sharpen my sword and wait for an immortal to come and find me. Thanks for turning up. Thanks for hanging around. I feel as if I've got more control over the tech tonight, which is a huge relief. And I enjoyed that one. That was good. Same time next week. Who knows what it'll be about? Probably Trump. And just to say that it's not like I'm a Trump fan or anything. It's just I think he's an amazing anthropological study of the human condition. Right? He's a fascinating individual to watch, observe. And of course, he's not without criticism. Everybody falls short. Nobody's perfect. I'll just comment on a few questions before I wrap it up. Wall should have been higher or maybe further down the country like Liverpool. Maybe Liverpool or Wales should have been behind the wall. And Debbie says, I only said keep the Nephilim fried Mars bars eaters in. Oh, right, yeah, I was just told that the stream was cut short again. I think it's the films. So I'm okay with the music, but I think it's the movies. If you play it for too long, which is such a downer, I need to know how to do it because other people play clips of movies. If anyone out there knows how I can get around it, I'd appreciate it. But there was a freeze for, I think, about 5 minutes. And if it was during the Highlander films, I'm going to be bloody pissed off. Yeah, so anybody that knows any info on that would be most useful. Thanks, Margie, for your continued support. If you haven't seen the podcast I did with my mum, she was here, and we talked about Letters to Brezhnev. It was good, just a little hour of us knocking it around. I'd love to do another one. That's not attracting, though. That's Kinevin. Yes, I'll be there with the armor of God. Thanks, Mark, for your support. You're a bit of a regular at the bar now. Well, the bar's open again. If anyone wants to send me anything, they can send me whiskey and vinyl. Thanks, Rosalie. Yes, thank you too. I think if that's it, I'm going to wrap it up, which was an hour and 45. I'm going to give you a bit of jazz to take us out. Until next week, keep on drifting.